Welcome to Mirrors into Windows, a podcast by Global Teaching Partners, an official Bridge USA designated organization. I'm Amy Corwin.
And I'm Dante Johnson. Together we dive into education from every angle, transforming reflections into opportunities and uncovering strategies that would help us look beyond the classroom walls.
Our goal is to connect educators from around the world, bringing you conversations, insights, and stories that will shift perspectives and ignite meaningful change. Because when mirrors become windows, the possibilities are endless.
Whether you're navigating life as an international teacher or searching for new ways to enhance your practice, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration, collaboration, and a richer understanding of the global classroom. So today we're excited to dive into a topic that's perfect for the new year. So New Year resolutions for teaching styles, right? And whether you're J1 on the J1 program or a seasoned teacher, an international teacher, this episode is kind of like good for you as you're creating meaning, right, behind the resolutions that you set to help you thrive in the American classroom.
Definitely. So New Year's resolutions are something that everyone tends to do come the beginning of January. I recently read in a psychology article that people really love to set goals. Setting objectives will lead to some meaningful change, whether you're going to try to read a little bit more, you're going to try to get fit in the new year. I know I've set that resolution many times. Or simply just maybe becoming more organized. I know that that's what many people do at the top of a new year, but you know, sticking to those goals are often much, much harder than really just jotting them down. Yeah. And so when I read on in the article, it found that nearly 64%, about 2/3 of people kind of abandon their New Year's resolutions. They set them, they say them, and usually within a month, they're gone. And I resonated so much with this because I classically would set a resolution and get very excited about it. But it's hard to sustain, right? It's kind of practically part of the tradition to kind of give up on your New Year's resolutions as soon as you start them. And so what we want to look at today is kind of what will help you make this year different. You know, why are we encouraging our educators to take the start of a new year to kind of reflect and plan for growth in the year ahead?
So first, understanding that teaching is a journey, right? It is not just a job. And setting the resolutions to begin with, or you can even set goals. I know some people decide they prefer to set goals instead of just a overall arching resolution. But it is a way for you to reflect on what went well, right? And then what to improve on. So looking at changing those mirrors into windows here, right? And so it really does help to create a sense of purpose for you as an educator. And then it gives you this assurance to just think about your continued development as you are teaching in the American classroom.
Yeah. So as J1 teachers, you're not only just kind of teaching your students, but you are also engaging in this beautiful cultural exchange. And so with a lot of new things happening and a lot of things for you to embrace, resolutions can be a positive way of embracing this exchange to continue to develop your cultural understanding and really just fostering this classroom environment where cultural diversity is celebrated and integrated into the curriculum. And so with the nature of resolutions being new goals or new things for you to try in a positive way, why not set some resolutions?
Yeah. The thing is, I think it's really important for us to look at resolutions even through self-care, through the lens of self-care and mindfulness. I think sometimes we set resolutions for, different things, especially if you're an educator, you might say, okay, these are the things I'm going to do in my classroom, but also looking at how you are as an individual. It's important for you to have a work-life balance.
Very important.
Like, that is so important. So especially because, if you're an international teacher, you are adjusting to a new culture. So you have life to think about. You have to make sure that you are doing the things that you need to help you adjust. And it's not just about your life as a professional, as we're saying. So basically, we're looking at you as a total person. It's about the entire being your best version of yourself that will impact you in the classroom and as you're teaching your students.
Yeah, teaching can be really demanding anyway. And so over time, it's really easy to lose sight of the passion that brought you into the classroom. This was like particularly true of me in my very first year here. I mean, by December of my first year, I was pretty defeated. The bright and shiny experience that I thought I was walking into had kind of dulled some by the reality of the demands and the difficult uphill struggles I was facing to get acclimated. And so you can look at it two ways. You can kind of sit there in that kind of defeated mindset, or you can plan positively for the next steps to kind of get yourself out of that. And so I remember in my first year, kind of probably for the first time in a long time, setting some New Year's resolutions. And I think I did that because I felt I just needed something positive to really help me kind of restart. The new year for teachers is also a new semester. So for many of you, especially in middles and high schools, you sometimes get a brand new set of kids. So it's like almost like getting a do-over, right? It's almost like those months gone by, okay, they were a learning experience, they were a learning curve, but here I have a clean slate to start over. And so it was a good opportunity to do what you're saying, set some goals around self-care, and so also just set some goals about how am I going to reestablish myself in this classroom positively so that I can make a way here.
And please hear us, this is not just for January.
No.
Like this is
it's
a
good
year.
Timing for it to be January.
Timing,
but this is good advice anytime.
Because like wherever you are in the year, you can listen to this podcast and you can say, hey, this is when I want to begin. And you can begin those steps to really help you to kind of just develop throughout the year. In one period of time, what I decided to do was purchase an inspirational journal. And in the journal, it offered guide words that kind of helped me to kind of think through the month and that I could focus on. And as I journaled, it just kind of helped me stay focused on my goals, right? So sometimes if you have goals that can seem pretty far off, but it's like, what tidbits can I put along the way to kind of help me work toward my goals? So, and I know, journaling is one of the things that, people do and we might hear of, but I want to say that is what helped me to maintain and work toward my goals as I looked at my resolutions or whatever things I wanted to do for development throughout the year.
Let's take a little bit of time to talk about some practical resolutions that maybe can help you kick off your new year with a fresh mindset. We understand that everybody may create different resolutions that resonate with them, but we just have a few here that we feel like will help you focus on your growth, your well-being, and kind of success as an international teacher. So the first one, which has got pretty trendy in recent years, is the idea of mindfulness. You heard that word before, Dante? Yeah, it's buzzing around right now. It is becoming pretty sort of strong skill to do because it's proven benefits for kind of mental health. It's kind of been proven to reduce stress and just really like a practice that's good for your overall well-being. In today's fast-paced and digitally connected world, people are really just seeking ways to just counteract that. Counteract the constant distractions of our life today and just the pressures of the modern world. Everything has just got so fast. And so the practice of mindfulness is all about really slowing down. Embracing mindfulness as a teaching resolution, well, I think that really can help ease some of the stress for both you and your students. If you as an adult feel like the world has got very fast, I can assure you your children do too. They absorb the feelings and sort of what they sense around them. And so they're bringing all of that into the classroom because perhaps mom and dad have had a really busy morning getting ready to go to work and things have just been like go, 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 go. And so this idea of practicing mindfulness in the classroom can be really grounding.
I think you named a lot there. You said a lot there especially with the fast-paced classroom. Like that is something that is alive and well right now. And I feel like slowing down for that mindfulness is super important. And there's ways in which you can do that as a teacher. You mentioned about how students come to school and, they come with all these type of things in their mind. So being intentional as an educator by offering those times of the during the day for them to really just slow down, right? So you could start small. You could have a 30-second breathing exercise for a moment of silence to kind of set a peaceful tone for them with the class. But then it also allows them to check in with themselves.
Yes.
And that's so important, just to slow down, check in with yourself, you as a teacher, and then also your students. And then have reflective prompts. So like have students kind of look at prompts that kind of allows them to just think back on what things they've experienced, what they're grateful for, right? Get them excited to learn, just kind of help them just to settle and be more self-aware. And I think that's important, especially for our older students as, they're learning more about themselves and able to check in. It just kind of reminds me of a time where even in the classroom, when I was in the classroom, we had pockets of time during the day where we have these moments where students will just sit and just check in with themselves. We'll do various things. I think one important thing I loved doing was in the first thing in the morning when students would come to school. A lot of students would come to school with so many different emotions and with the different experiences of home, parents rushing them out the door, just glad to get them at school on time, right? So they come, and then here I am ready to teach, but they're not in that right mindset.
They're not ready to learn yet.
Exactly. So what we did is we had an activity where they were able to pick an emoji of how they felt on the inside.
Very relevant
to
today.
Exactly. And so they picked an emoji and talked about why they were feeling that. And there was no judgment. It was just offering time and space for them to say, hey, this is what I feel. I'm okay to feel this way. And then I can help to regulate myself, to get myself in a place where I'm ready to learn.
It's also a good little check-in as well to know who's not in a good mood that day, because then you can kind of direct some more of your attention towards that person because maybe they had a hard morning and they picked up pretty negative emoji.
Exactly.
Also, it's quite a challenge for a teacher to try to turn that little emoji around. So perhaps sort of showing those emojis again by the end of the day and sort of seeing if the emojis change throughout the course of the day could be really helpful as well to sort of keep checking in on your students. I really like that. That's a really great idea. And so also this is a wonderful opportunity to kind of bring in a bit of your own culture. This practice of mindfulness is actually been happening for years in many other countries as well in different variations. Mindfulness practices do vary around the world. Perhaps there is a cultural tradition or a routine from your home country that really centers around mindfulness. Why not adapt that and share it with your students? It doesn't have to be very complicated.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a grounding exercise, maybe a visualization exercise. A lot of other cultures pray or meditate as well. And so maybe you can use that and share it in a secular way with your students within the classroom.
Yeah, I love that. So that part when you're saying about incorporating culture differences, it reminds me of a teacher from Argentina. And she brought in a section of the day where it's kind of living in the moment, which nice. I connect with that. Because that actually was my phrase this year, living in the moment, just paying attention to, what's currently happening and just showing gratitude. And so that's what she really was promoting in her classroom. Like you talked about the grounding exercises. She had short grounding exercises, deep breathing, gratitude reflections. And I love how she, allows students to share stories of their family traditions and their stories of things that their family enjoys. So the students were able to bring their culture into the classroom, and she was very reflective with that. And I feel like that is so important as you look through the cultural lens and making sure that students feel inclusive. We talked about that before in the classroom. And it's not just their background, but it's who they are as an individual right now in the current moment. So hence living in the moment, right? And allowing them to bring that into the classroom.
Yeah. Why are we saying all of this? Like, where are we getting all of this knowledge from? And so I tried to take a leaf out of your book, Dante. I needed to do a little research on this because
I love it.
I know that this is gaining traction because their research shows that it works.
Yeah.
And so Patricia Jennings has a really great book called Mindfulness for Teachers. And so I went there to look for a little bit of the why. Like, why practice mindfulness? What is it doing? What are the benefits of it? And so she emphasizes in her book that it's not just about relaxation. It's not about just a timeout or 5 minutes for the teacher to kind of regroup because where everybody's sitting in silence. But it's a transformative practice that can significantly impact your classroom dynamics. So by cultivating this mindness, teachers can enhance their own well-being while fostering a more focused, empathetic, supportive learning environment for their students. And so she summarizes 6 ways. I'm not going to have the time to go into a lot of them in detail, that mindfulness can just really help educators thrive, both personally and professionally. But let me just tell you a little bit about those, and you can go check her book out if you want to learn a little bit more about these. But first of all, she states that like it really helps you understand your emotions. It is hard to determine sometimes what you are feeling. And sometimes life is just so busy that there's not space in your head or space around you to really think through, well, what am I like checking in with me? Like, what am I feeling right now? And so giving mindfulness space in the classroom will really help teachers notice emotional patterns, respond thoughtfully to emotional patterns they're seeing. Personally, it's going to help a teacher build some resilience because you're basically checking in with yourself and understanding what you're doing. So that's the first thing that she mentions that it really benefits. Secondly, it'll help manage some challenging behaviors. It kind of will give you that awareness that'll allow you to approach misbehavior with compassion and intention. Kind of like what you say with your emoji. You know, if you see that a kid is saying first thing in the morning that they're sad or upset, it's going to get you thinking about what went on before they got here. What led up to that emotion, right? Instead of just assuming that the way that they either act out in the classroom or the way that they're behaving is just because they're choosing to do that, it actually might give you another perspective to kind of think through what led up to that and how can I be more empathetic towards that. Creating positive environments is another benefit. Organizing your space and routines mindfully and practicing mindfulness will encourage calm, encourage focus, just that kind of deep breathing situation. Just kind of give it that moment to rest rather than just go, 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 go. So that's another great one as well. Building relationships, if you are starting to incorporate some of these mindful practices where you're putting in reflection prompts where maybe they're sharing things they're grateful for, things they're excited to learn, you'll start to kind of notice patterns in student strengths. You'll be able to sort of see not just academically, but kind of socially, creatively. You'll get to see what kids really thrive on, like journaling or reflection. And so you can really tap into that with helping build the relationship piece in the academic side if you see them doing that. And the fifth thing she says is pause intentionally. We all learn at different paces. I think about you. You tell me all the time, Dante, you like to take all the information, then sit on it. You like to go away and think about it, and then come back to the table with the next steps or the practice. And I'm learning working with you that like, okay, I'm going to front load you with something and I'm going to allow you to sit and simmer and then come back. So I know it's only short and it's only short bursts in the classroom, but if you pause intentionally, you give those students time to really just absorb and kind of process the information rather than just skipping on ahead to the next thing where they may not have even had time to really internalize the last thing you said because like we said, there's lots happening all of the time. And so that's really important too. And lastly, she says, fostering community. The more you do these kind of collaborative activities in your classroom, the more you're just showing that they belong to a community where we do these things together. You nurture that kind of sense of belonging and empathy for each other, and you start to get a better understanding of one another as well. And so I thought those were like great reasons to kind of do this work, because as a teacher, you feel like you have a lot on your plate, so you might be like, I don't have time for those extra moments. But don't overlook those extra moments, because sometimes those can be the most powerful moments in your classroom, despite all of the work that needs to get done. So whether it's a breathing exercise or a quiet moment or a 5-minute reflection or a journal prompt or something rooted in your culture, this idea of mindfulness can really help you create some balance, can create some connection, it can create some stronger classroom community. So just think about maybe setting a mindfulness resolution that maybe aligns with who you are. Don't overwhelm yourself with it. Like we said, you can start small and just think about how you want your classroom to feel. So like even just a short 2 minutes after the announcements have happened, before the day starts, to kind of create that moment, it can have a ripple effect that will just create more energy, more focus for your classroom in a really positive way.
I love that. I'm sitting here like wanting to take notes. That is so rich. I love it. Yeah, that's definitely something that I think I would like to go back and read upon and get more understanding of. But, that in itself, I think in a nutshell, just kind of like really captures what we're trying to say. And, with that, I think that, being intentional about implementing various culture rituals or things in which you can do within your classroom to kind of help jumpstart that mindfulness, which I think is another example of a resolution, right? Like, so being very intentional about implementing those things in your classroom. So when I walk around to various classrooms with some of our teachers and I see awesome things that they're doing. And I'm like, okay, so this is not just something that you're just deciding to do. I can tell that you've thought through this, and this is something that you're carrying on from home. Case in point, I was in a few classrooms the other day, and I saw teachers with affirmations written on the board. And they were sayings that were pretty much from their country. And it was amazing because they had it on the board, the students understood it, and then the students was also like learning the language from the international teacher, and so they were understanding it on so many different levels, not only with what it meant for them as being an American, but also learning it in a different language and learning the deeper concept of it. And I think they offered it every week. There was a different one every week. So I can tell that teacher was intentional about making sure that mindfulness, that the looking at the total person was involved in the classroom. Because like we said, you're not just a science teacher. You're not just about a math teacher. There's so much more to you, and we want that to shine and show in the classroom.
Yeah, so definitely setting a resolution to continue to pour your own culture into your students.
Yeah.
Because one of the most beautiful pieces of this is you have a lot to offer from your own unique perspective that you can bring to the U.S. students here in the classroom. So don't let that go as you get deeper and deeper in trying to navigate the U.S. curriculum and the U.S. school system, because don't underestimate the impact it's having on your kids. And so you're on a cultural exchange. One way to do that is to just continue to pour into your kids about your identity, your heritage. One great way I've seen that done is kind of you could introduce like a weekly global perspective moment. For instance, we have a teacher from South Africa who likes or has shared with her kids, family gatherings are often the place where meals are prepared together, they bond over it, and then, it's often times that you pass those traditions down. And so having that conversation about what you were used to, what that looked like, it could really tie into a lesson on family structures or cultural celebrations and social studies. It takes you off script a little bit. You're not going to find that in your standards or your U.S. curriculum, but it will show students how the concept of family and tradition can look in other places across the world. Don't assume they just know that every family structure dynamic looks the same, because kids only see what they see in their house, right? And so sharing this practice, the teacher not only really enriches the topic with like a personal story, but also invites the students to kind of appreciate how culture influences the daily life. And that's going to just foster greater respect, greater understanding all around.
Yeah, I love that. I think another way to look at it is, so I love holidays, right? And so even looking at it from the example, like let's use Independence Day as an example. Looking at Independence Day and talking about that within the classroom with the American students, but also talking about your country's Independence Day in the classroom and factoring that in. Case in point, one of our Jamaican teachers, she was actually talking about celebrations that they have during their Jamaican Independence Day, and so she explained about the parades and the reggae music and the food that they eat, the jerk chicken, rice and peas that they eat. Yeah, so that significance within the culture, even factoring in Jamaican flags, was super important that the students were able to learn about Independence Day in various cultures. I think it's also important to talk about the Independence Day that lives within each country. Like there are variations of independence that lives in a country. So even here in America, we have some independence. There's some independence that women went through, and then we have independence for African Americans. We're talking about Juneteenth. So I think it's important to factor in those variations of independence, and the same thing for other countries. Talk about some of the how people evolved and the independence in your in your country where you're from, and bring that into your American classroom for your students.
Look how easy it can be done. You're already just spitballing all of these ideas that just tie in so beautifully to what you're already teaching every day. You can talk about other unique customs, foods people eat, symbolic traditions. By relating these practices to kind of other global celebrations, you constantly kind of provide your students with a broader understanding of how different cultures observe the same event.
Yeah.
We all love to eat, right? Kids love to learn about food. It's not always McDonald's all over the world that is everybody's number one go-to, right? So like the Jamaicans love to share about their jerk chicken, their rice, their peas. Kids have never even really heard about that. And so those are simple, tangible, relatable ways to just connect with their own lives. And so it's super easy to do. It's not just the major holidays that kind of offer cultural insights. You can zone in on some lesser known cultural events or some other everyday practices from your home country can be really just as fascinating and meaningful to your students. And you can share these, and you're all giving a window into your culture that they may not encounter otherwise. Okay? And it's super authentic. It's super authentic to do that, and it's more powerful than you know.
Yeah, I like to think about examples of how you can use it even inside of math. Like there are some countries that might look at numbers as symbols of things, and I think that it's important to kind of make it fun. Factor that into your lessons. Like for instance, the number 13 from a Honduran teacher was pretty much like sharing that the number 13 is an unlucky number, right, in their culture, but then versus the number 7 is a lucky number. Yeah. So as you're teaching those things, you kind of spark this interest in your students. So like, I want to make sure I get the number 7, on things like that. But it's just a good way to kind of help lead to some conversations where how different things, it doesn't matter what you teach. It doesn't just have to be social studies, but you can factor in some culture differences and nuances within your lesson.
I've seen some teachers use currency as well in a really creative way.
That's a good one.
I've been on a few school visits where I see they've set up like a global market in the classroom as a reward system. For example, like a teacher from South Africa uses Rand, which is the South African currency, as kind of classroom currency to reward positive behavior. I've seen them like print out copies of the money and then they give them out, and if they do good work they can purchase rewards, extra recess, classroom privileges. And so this is totally connected to the math concepts like counting, budgeting. It makes it more relatable, but look how easy it is. You're bringing in an aspect of your cultural exchange into the classroom while still kind of teaching these practical life skills.
I love that. So I mean, ultimately this approach is going to spark curiosity with our students, and I feel like that is what's important for their learning. And these small cultural moments, right, they inspire students to embrace the diversity. And so not only are they learning whatever concept you're teaching, but they're also looking at ways to ways in which they can respect, right, and appreciate the different perspectives in the various cultures. And so for this resolution, you want to make it a goal to share small pieces or bits and pieces of your culture each week, like just spreading it out. And it doesn't have to be a major presentation that you're doing. You could share brief stories, customs, traditions, for whatever culture that you're a part of. And these small moments make a lasting impact on your students beyond just the classroom and helping them to understand the world.
So we've given you some resolutions that you can directly bring into the classroom, introducing those moments of mindfulness and not forgetting that your culture is vitally important and that you should continue to pour that into your students on a weekly basis. But something we said at the beginning that is probably even more important than that is some self-care.
Yeah.
So I think we would be doing everybody an injustice if we don't set a resolution around some self-care. We want to make it a priority to take care of yourself in the new year. If you are the best version of yourself, you're going to be the best version for your students. And so relocating to the U.S. can sometimes make you feel really disconnected from the confident, routine-driven person that you were back home. And we've talked about that a lot over the last few weeks, that the adjustment to culture for you as a human can be really large. Like perhaps in the Philippines, you just knew exactly how to navigate your classroom.
Right.
Or in Jamaica, you knew where to take your car if it needed to be repaired. Or in Colombia, you spoke up freely in meetings and it was just second nature for you to do that. All of these different types of routines, they give a person some confidence, they give a person some security. But here you are in a new country and you feel very unsure of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to start regaining that confidence. And so it can really take its toll on you. So we want to start by prioritizing your well-being.
Yeah.
Okay? Teaching in a new culture is extremely exciting, but it's demanding. It is. And so you've got to find that balance, balancing the needs of what your students need, but also adjusting to life here in the U.S. And so it will take its toll if you're not careful. So it is crucial. It is vital for you to make time for self-care. It's not optional.
Right.
Stop, put the books down, put the lesson plans down. Focus on building a support network.
Yeah.
People you can turn to that can help you with this.
Right, connect with other J1 teachers. To me, I feel like that's one of the more immediate ways you can do that. And it doesn't only have to be face to face. It can also be online. You could be in person or it can be online. But you want to connect with other people who share the same experiences that can offer advice. Exactly. And that's actually something that some teachers have done, this year, reached out via email and said, hey, do you know another teacher that's in the program who's been here for 3 years that I can connect with? And I'm like, absolutely. Because their journey, they have similarities in their journey, more so than what I can give them, So I feel like that is a great way for teachers to kind of like just feel grounded.
Yeah.
And feel like they have a sense of connection through the challenges that they will encounter, because they will encounter challenges, But I just think it's a great way to honor that self-care by connecting with others.
This is so true. When I arrived, there was one other teacher placed in my school from the UK. I didn't know her. We had never met before, but we stuck together like glue.
I love
because when we started to talk, things felt familiar.
Yeah.
She wanted a cup of tea. I wanted a cup of tea.
I love it.
We loved the Queen, so we talked about the Queen. And so, it's comforting, right?
Yeah.
And so I know you might be like, well, I don't make friends well as a grown-up, or I don't, but you know what? We became great friends because we bonded over the common experience that we were on the same program, we were from the same country, we were experiencing the same challenges, and it really brought comfort.
Yeah.
And she's still one of my best friends to this day.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you just never know where it's going to go
Yeah.
by just being open enough to kind of connect with someone that you don't know.
Absolutely.
So that's great.
Absolutely.
Another great tool, I think, is positive self-talk. You have to be very intentional about this one because we as humans are very known to go kind of negative quite quick. It's very easy for us to point out the faults in ourselves quicker than we can point out the good things in ourselves. So if you are intentional, and it might be a little cheesy, you might not feel like comfortable doing this, but look in that mirror and tell yourself, I'm making a difference. Or you know what? I am calm and I'm very capable.
Yeah.
And I know it is kind of a weird thing to do, But it is important to just shift that mindset in a small way to just build your confidence. Because if you can't tell yourself you're great, you're not going to hear it from anybody else either. So just, especially when things are very overwhelming, maybe some positive self-talk will help you kind of set your best foot forward. You might consider setting some measurable goals. I know some people are more visual learners, so a vision board can be kind of helpful for that. Maybe in the new year you buy yourself a new notebook or a journal or a calendar or something where you can visually see your goals, and so that can help you stay focused on both your personal side and your professional side. Seeing your goals represented visually can kind of provide that clarity, motivate you to just keep moving the path forward. It might help it feel a little less daunting if you can kind of see the journey out. If that's the type of learner you are, that could be really helpful for you. And then once you're attaining those goals or getting closer to those goals, you can celebrate those small wins. You can celebrate the breakthrough. You can celebrate the accomplishment you've had with your student, or the lesson that went smoothly, or the you're getting your head around now the curriculum and you planned a really great lesson. And so that would be another great way to just kind of take care of yourself.
I love that part you said about positive self-talk. I feel like that, like you said, it is weird at first, but it really does make a difference. And what I notice is that that's something that I started practicing at the start of this year. And what I noticed is that through that and then channeling into my journaling, it was like a reflection. Like I was like, okay, the self-talk is channeling now into my journaling, which became more positive oriented. Starting off with journaling, first of all, with gratitude. Like just writing down the things that I'm grateful for is a great way. It has helped me start my day. And so I say to everyone, like I feel like that is a great way to start, right? Just showing what you're grateful for. And then you build upon that. And if you want to add more narrative to that, then you can. But I feel like journaling is a way that can work to remind you of your accomplishments. It's also a way to help you build resilience, because you go through hard times and you overcome that, and you're fine, and then you hit another hard time. Sometimes we say, oh my God, what are we going to do? But if you go back in your journal and read what you've done the first time you went through something, it gives you the sense of empowerment. I'm resilient. The different perspective, and say, if I went through it before, I can overcome it again.
A great counselor told me once that sometimes journaling can just be so powerful as getting it out of your head as well. Sometimes when we're just going through something hard or challenging, keeping it all inside of us is partly the hardest part. And so, writing it down, like you said, that it comes out of our head and it's onto the paper, and then we can read it back and reflect and see the growth. That's powerful. Is powerful. I like it. Also, take some time this year to just invest in your professional growth. Continuous learning keeps teaching fresh and can help you reduce burnout. If there are things offered to you, take workshops, online courses, maybe even join a teacher book club. There's plenty of those kind of online these days. Look, I know teaching is very demanding. We've said that at least 3 times in this podcast episode today. I'm not asking you to just do so much work that you don't have any time to relax or do something. But think about what you're passionate about. Think about what you like to learn. If you are a teacher, I can probably guess that you do like to learn, because that's part of the DNA of a teacher. And so it's not just about becoming a better teacher. It's about keeping you curious. When you learn new things, you stay passionate about teaching, because you learn the next or best or latest thing that's kind of always changing. And so ultimately it will benefit you and your students. So take some time away from just planning lessons and putting in data into grade book and things like that. And just, do a course that's for you that just really helps you to just grow as an educator, really. And so I think that if you make self-care a priority this year, building a strong network of people, creating a foundation for resilience by doing so, if you take care of yourself, then the more you'll be able to offer for your students.
Absolutely.
And so that is really important to keep that in mind. You first, and then that trickles down into your kids.
Exactly. So I know we said a lot today with
We did,
this,
yes.
and you know, I feel like all of it was important. So just to recap on like the three main takeaways for today, and you know, we're talking about meaningful resolutions that you could utilize. One is incorporating mindfulness in your classroom.
Yes.
Right. Two is bringing your culture into everyday lessons. Super important. And the third one is caring for your own well-being and advocating for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that these are resolutions that go beyond just teaching, right? They are resolutions that are for life. So we would like for you to take these to help make your journey as an international teacher more fulfilling.
Yeah. As we step into this new year, let's remember that the most important resolution you could possibly make is to stay open to change, growth, and learning.
Yeah.
Just like we encourage our students to do. It's no different than what we ask from them. So we do hope that today's discussion has sparked some ideas for how you can bring more mindfulness and joy and ultimately innovation into your classroom in 2025.
And now on to the segment of the podcast where we take a moment to ask candid questions to our educators. This is where we get up close and personal with our amazing international teachers, asking them fun, lighthearted, and heartwarming questions and give us a glimpse into their unique cultural backgrounds and teaching journeys. What question do we have today, Amy?
Well, Dante, we talked a lot about New Year's resolutions, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of see what our teachers would plan to set for their New Year's resolutions. So I asked the question, how do you plan to balance your personal well-being with the demands of teaching this year? And I specifically asked them to kind of think about it from a cultural perspective, like what are maybe some of the things they did at home that they want to try to implement here now that they're living in the U.S. And so got some really nice responses on this one. I'll just tell you a couple of them. And so a third-year teacher had this to say for us. She said, growing up in Jamaica, nature was always sort of a vital part of her life, whether it was the lush greenery or the calming sounds of the ocean. If you've ever been to Jamaica, they get to go to the beach year-round.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I'm sure it's really calming. And so she said it was her go-to for sort of finding balance, especially during stressful times. And so she said that this year she was going to try to commit to making some more time for nature intentionally, whether she was going to go for a quiet walk, sitting in the park, or just stepping outside in the fresh air. She told me it's been hard for her to implement that because it's a lot colder here than what she's used to. And so the first couple of years she's lived here, she's kind of locked herself home, and especially through January, February, March, just really tried to not go outside. But she said that it's kind of bringing her down because that's something she loves to do. And so we talked about the fact that there are some nicer days in North Carolina in January and February. You can be lucky. And so she said she's going to try to do that a little more for self-care to help her reset, clear her mind, and recharge to try to put her best foot forward for her students. She finished by saying that nature is her personal reset button. It allows her to restore her energy and maintain her balance amidst the demands of teaching.
I love it.
And so I thought that was a really great one. And I told her, yes, get out, have a walk. That would be awesome.
Get some sun.
Talked to another teacher from Colombia. And this ties into what you said a lot throughout the episode, that she wants to continue the practice of gratitude. She wants to make that a daily practice because in Colombia they're taught that from a very young age to really appreciate their life's blessings, whether they're big blessings or small blessings. They're sort of taught to show gratitude.
I love it.
And so this year she said, I'm going to plan to try and bring that tradition into my routine by trying to write down one thing every day I'm grateful for, whether that was a successful lesson or a quiet moment at home or something else in my personal life. She said, in the busy world of teaching, taking time for gratitude shifts my mindset, helping me to stay grounded, helping me to stay positive, even on the really tough days. It's a simple practice that keeps her focused on what truly matters, nurturing her well-being and renewing her energy for the day ahead. Aren't those some great New Year's resolutions?
Yes.
I really hope that some of our other teachers and educators can take these to heart and plan some great New Year's resolutions too. Thanks for listening to Mirrors into Windows. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. It helps us reach more educators just like you.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and any other social media platforms, or visit our website at globalteachingpartners.com. Until next time, I'm Dante Johnson.
And I'm Amy Corwin.